preparing right now.
Welcome to A to Z with Ali and Zilla, where we take you from real-world challenges to practical solutions.
From mindset and manifestation to culture, community, and building better systems born. This isn't just talk.
Let's get into it.
All right, welcome back. This is A to Z with Ali and Zilla. Honestly, we're just two guys, two friends having deep conversations, and we decided we're going to hit the record button and see what we can make of it. I'm Zilla, and this is my guy, Ali. Oh, younger Ali, what's going on, man?
Hey man, I'm just chilling, loving life, dude. Waiting to see what happens with us right now. Seeing how life is, that's what's going on. How you feeling with all this extra summer going on?
Oh, I feel great with it, man. This is the best time of year, especially up here in Oregon. We're getting a little rain, so it's been great, man. I'm excited about this show we got today, though, for sure. Creating through bias, fatherhood, and the fight to thrive. And the question we ask, man, what happens when pain shapes the way you see yourself, other people, and the life you're trying to build? Today, we're going to be talking about a little bit of everything from racism, personal bias, fatherhood, marriage, being vulnerable and healing, and what's that like, trying to go through all of that and navigate that while you're trying to be whole yourself and be a leader for your family, friends, and those around you. Yeah, man. So it's going to be a
Yeah,
good one.
yeah, and there are going to be a lot of questions in here. Some of them may not get answered, but at least it'll spark some extra thought, to this
Right.
process, because that's what this is mainly about, for the community to come together and think about what's actually going on and what we feel is important, especially to strive in these times, because these times are not no different than any other times. I only been 51 once, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
51, even though it was a little bit different 60 years ago, uh, there were still those struggles, some of the same struggles.
How's that saying go? The more things change, the more things stay the same.
Oh yeah,
Something like that.
it's got to be true. And then people's perspective is a little bit different, but it really hasn't changed. No matter, like, the more and more we see these things, especially since we did talk about race a little bit, the more we see these things, uh, the more we can tell that it is staying really close to the same, at least for the construction of the United States. And it's not that far away, because my mother was alive during Martin Luther King.
Okay.
During that era. My great grandmother was alive when supposedly the slaves were free. You know what I mean? So it's like, it was not that long ago. Not
Yeah.
as long ago as the history or the media or people would like us to believe it was. You know, so
Okay.
this is why we need to talk. We need to talk so
Yeah,
we
for
can
sure.
continue to create and birth change in this nation and in
Yeah, for sure.
ourselves.
Yeah, man. I was out at a bar my wife and I stopped yesterday, and they had this sign up on the behind the bar. It said, "No politics, no religion to discuss at the bar," right? And it made me
Okay.
think about a lot of the conflicts that we have that we see are about those two topics. But yet, we're not really encouraged to talk about them, especially at work, in public places, because they are heated topics. And a lot of times people have a challenge talking about those things maturely. But if we were able to talk about it maturely, perhaps we could get on the same page, or at the very least understand someone else. And maybe that might be a solution to overcome some of these issues we've seen, some of these wars. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I'm
most
excited to
definitely.
talk about this one. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's
It's
just about approaching it with some maturity.
and since you said that, um, I was in a meeting with a large group of people, and
Yeah.
I think it was about 70 people, and I was talking about building a community and stuff that deals with Black people, and saying that not just deals with Black people, but deals with growth and um, creating a community. And uh, I ran into some racism dealing with that, as far as some of the leaders that we was trying to get to buy land and stuff like this. And one of the leaders of this group was like, are you sure it was racism? Right. And I'm like, yeah, it was racism. And then it felt to me in my heart that she was trying to. Now, I love the girl. She's a white woman, and she's freaking cool, and she has a lot of knowledge. She does have a lot of knowledge. Hold on for one moment. And it felt like she was trying to bypass my knowledge and say my knowledge of situations weren't relevant. And I'm like, you can't tell me that there's no racism. We have the Proud Boys, we got the white nationalists, we got the Ku Klux Klan, we got the skinheads. Like,
Was
those people are real.
you trying to say like racism didn't exist at all? Like
That's
there's
well, in a sense. And I was
okay.
like, wait a minute, I have been to Ku Klux Klan rallies. You know, I've seen uh cross burnings. When it's like as late as 2004 when I was in South Carolina. There were people being hung. Now and we still heard about that a few months ago, shortly after Charlie Kirk got killed. There was some college students hung, right? So I'm like, they're still doing it. They're still doing it. I'm like, there is, and now that happened after the conversation, but I'm like, they're still doing it. How can people not see this thing? And then she said something that was really, really uh, enlightening, inspiring, confusing. It was a whole gambit of things, but it was interesting, and it made me think. And she said, everybody's always enrolling somebody.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what do you mean?
What does that mean? Yeah.
Right?
Hopefully she
And
broke that down because that's a deep statement.
yeah, it is. And she was like, you're saying that they were being racist and you got enrolled into their racism.
Oh,
You did not enroll them into what you was doing. So when she said it like that, it made me okay, because I have dealt with some racists before in the military, and
yeah.
we was all on the same page. So they were enrolled into the same thing I was enrolled. So there's no, there was really no friction, as far as when it came to doing the job. And I'm like, so what do you mean? And she was like, you are a creator. We are children of God. Now, mind you, this is not a religious place. This is not a religious place, but she was coming from this standpoint. She said, you are a child of God, and we are children of God. So that makes us creators. You are allowing this negative creation of racism to outshine your ability to create something beautiful in this world. You have to enroll these people who have that sense of thought, or that thought in their head, into what you are trying to create or what you are creating. Don't enroll yourself into the nonsense and garbage that they are doing. So I'm sitting here thinking at the same time,
Boy,
right?
I
Right?
bet you had to go. "Hmm."
And I'm sitting here thinking, I was
Yeah.
like, that is some old positive thinking type stuff. And I'm like, I'm at the beginning of this journey. So being at the beginning of the journey, I do understand that there is good and positive thinking. Like, especially you can see it throughout your days and throughout your different walks in which anybody's taken. But one of the big ones that I'm pretty sure everybody know, and it's about sports, when you got the underdog going into play any sport, and they're getting beat by a bigger, stronger team, and they get that little bit of motivation. It only takes one to spark that that energy of I can win. They may not be enrolled in this, but I'm enrolled in winning. And then they start enrolling the rest of the team into I can do this. I can do this. This is possible. And then they came in rickety and raggedy, getting their butt kicked. But at the end, they realized the way their mindset was and the ability that they had to create a vision of them winning. At least if they didn't win the game, it helped them get closer to winning the game. Or they did win the
Yeah,
game. You see what I mean? So
yeah, for sure.
we do have that ability. But then I was thinking too, when does that become insanity? It's like,
What becomes insanity? Like when you're buying into the bigger overall picture of that you're being victimized as in a situation. That what you mean?
yeah, something like that. I'm saying like, okay, we're at the beginning of this. I'm just going to use that situation because we're just going to stay on the game. We can stay on the game. Um, the person is in the game they're playing, and they done had the idea, oh, we're going to win this game. We're going to win this game, and they're steadily getting scored on, score after score, and they're like, I'm going to win this game. I'm going to win this game. I'm going to win this game. When does that become an insane thought to be like, we're going to win this game, but we're down 62-3. you know, and I mean, I understand like if it's like we only got three minutes left, there's no way we can score 68 points. You know, that would be an insane thought unless they're thinking we can still win a championship. Of course, when you put time involved,
Yeah,
there's an insanity thing that could be if you just want to believe it, but about the ability to be able to create, because some of these people, some of us, and even me at times, have thought I am a creator. I can create this, and then falter in that same thought and be like, well, I'm not going to be able to do this. But a creator can create. It's like, when does the truth become non-belief?
yeah. I mean, that's a deep question you pose about it. And to use your same analogy, I sometimes think about race in that the people who keep throwing this into our face are not just simply using race as a divider by color, but it's also putting people in what we call the rat race, where you're competing for economic status. So a race in that sense. And they
Okay.
use polar opposites, right? Like when it comes to like understanding yin and yang, one colors, two colors that can represent that are black and white. So this is why I think we use the polarization of these two quote unquote races to create a perpetual race in a sense between the races that we divide by color. And I say that because when we talk about racism, it's a generational thing. And it's a generational thing because of the ideals and principles that get put into children who then carry that thing on. So the reason why it can seem insane when you feel like you've been on the lower end of that race by there's someone who's supposedly at a higher level than you, whether you deem that to be a Chinese race, a white race, a Korean race, whatever. When you put it seems to answer your question about the when does it seem insanity in your lifetime, sure, time is going to run out. But this is why the children are so important because it's a changing of the ideals in the children's mind who are the future who can consistently over time overcome this fight of
So
this
you're
racism. So it's not what I'm saying is the war is not necessarily won in a generation.
right.
It's an evolution of time. What we have to do is begin to plant the seeds and let them water and grow so that over time the evolution of humanity changes.
So
So we
you're
win in
talking
that way.
about
We win in that way.
a spectrum of victim versus responsibility,
Yeah, man. Is that
because the victim mentality does not allow a person. It does spark a little bit of energy, but it does not seem to allow a person to achieve or get emotionally right and think of creative things to pass that victim mentality. You know, they always want to. Most victims, I ain't gonna say most. I don't know a lot of victims, but I figure some victims just want to complain about all kinds of stuff and not get past where their level of where they're at, instead of taking responsibility for whatever it is that they're been victimized from. You know, like even us, you know, and on now this is a grand scale. We, and I'm talking about me personally, uh been feeling like at times, victim of police brutality, racism, victim of this system, of this governmental system or whatever, right? Being responsible, taking responsibility for it is falling in line, right?
sure?
Okay, I'm not going to go out there and rob nobody. I'm not going to go do no drugs. I'm not going to put myself in a position to where I even have to really deal with the system. Another way to um, take responsibility is to exactly what you said, plant the seeds to our children. You know, maybe even some people have done it and they got off the grid. You know, I know some people out here who live in uh Sloan out in Sloan and Cold Creek who are off the grid. You know, they got their own source of water. They have solar, um, and it's a mixed group of people. There's Asians, whites, blacks who live in this little area up on the mountain, and they're cool people. They just want to get out of the system. You know, they are still guarded by some, but you know, there's other groups that are moved out of the system, like some of the Moors, some of the Islamists, and maybe even some Jews who live here
Sure.
have gotten themselves out of the system. So there is a thing of responsibility and planting that seed to keep that movement.
Yeah.
And real quick, also the to monitor how we feel in that moment and not stay in that low vibrational uh feeling.
Sure. And
Yeah,
I got a question for you, man.
yeah,
I got a
sure.
question for you about it because as I think about it, right, the victim mentality would say, "Oh, I can't go out and do that because they view me like this, or they are trying to hold me back." Whoever they is, right?
Right.
But what responsibility do we have? Because it seems like the issue then is the responsibility is on us to be able to create a life that we want through the bias that we think people have against us. And that starts with like, in my opinion, some self-reflection, some self understanding who you are, your self-worth, your self-value. What responsibility is it on a person to be able to take that stance and then create a life they want in spite of the bias? Because we really have to be able to block out that noise. Like, what do you say to that?
You said one more time though, what is the
Yeah,
responsibility
what,
on the person?
yeah,
Because
on the person, because
that's
yeah,
a
you say
hundred. They got 100% of that responsibility. I have
I,
100% of that responsibility to go ahead. You get ready to
yeah,
say
yeah,
something.
let me clarify a little bit.
Okay.
We know they got the responsibility, but how does one kind of put on the blinders and see beyond what they think people, because you walk around, so not you, but people can walk around and feel like they're being judged all day, or people are putting them in a place because they're black, or people are putting them in a place because they're white, and they feel like they're hindered by how other people are viewing them, how does one put on the blinders and just go about their business to create a great life for themselves in spite of
Okay.
that?
There are many ways to do that. One of the ways is to find people of your like thinking
Okay.
or a higher thinking, get with them, and then they could help you stay in that forward thinking to where you want to be because everybody around you is thinking something similar, right?
Okay.
Another way to do it is to believe in yourself. This is what I am focused on. This is what I want to do. It doesn't matter what anybody else wants to do. Have good mentors, because if you think about it like this, there are going to be people out there in their own minds creating their own little racist things, their own little negative things. I don't like dudes with baggy pants. I don't like dudes with tight pants. There's people out there always being somebody's critic, and we know that. Uh, we shouldn't. We should not focus on that because, to be honest with you, a lot of times people aren't really focused on us
Right.
when
For
when
sure. They're
we're
not.
yeah when we're out there. If you actually think about it, unless you're a people watcher, and I am that. So I do think that people are looking at me a lot. But then I do know that they don't really care what I'm going through, what I'm doing, as long as I'm not affecting them or in their space. So I have the free will and free and right to do whatever it is that I am planning on doing that is bettering myself. Long as even if I'm hurting somebody, I have that free will and they have that free will to protect themselves. I wouldn't do anything to hurt anybody, but it's still a sense of that the spectrum, the bad end, supposedly the good end. That whole spectrum, anybody can touch at any time, you know. But as far as being responsible, being responsible to myself is staying on the path that I choose, and not worrying about what other people choose, and just to sit there and even what's one of the things, meditate, uh,
Sure.
affirmations, journal, just to keep your mind on it. Go to again, I said, hang around people with like minds. Watch our podcast. Um, Go to church. There's all kinds of ways that people can stay on their path. Start enrolling people into what you want. Don't get enrolled into what other people want. And what we have going on in our minds is a lot of past experiences that are negative and are scared or trying to keep us safe. So they would say,
Sure.
"Oh, they're look at that white dude over there. He doesn't like you." Doesn't matter whether he likes me. If I'm trying to go to McDonald's, I'm not. But if I'm trying to go out to eat and there's a dude over here, what does it matter if he likes me or not? It
I
doesn't.
mean, it
So
doesn't matter. You hit on something that's big I want to ask you about,
go
and
ahead.
because it sounds like you're kind of saying it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if you're focused on the bias a lot and too much, then that's what you're going to see, right? And if
Yeah.
you're in an environment where you're around other like-minded people who see that, how does how do you see beyond that if you're in that? You get what I'm saying? Like if everyone is around you in a group who's saying, "Oh, everyone around us is biased, dude. We can't get out of this because everyone out there is against us." Is there a way, like, I guess what I'm asking is how does one penetrate to shift the perspective for that person who's immersed in that? Like if you're in a family who's been racist for 50,000 years and now you're a child born into it, how does it how does that child then get to the next level of, man, maybe this isn't the correct thought. Maybe this isn't it.
Well, if I figure if that child has already had that thought of maybe, and they're going through the conflict or battle of trying to get other people from that same group on their side or trying to change that person's mind, dig them out of, hey, it's whatever it is, stop doing drugs, stop being racist, stop suppressing or whatever these people, whatever it may be. What they need to do is, if they're in a group like that, separate from the group. And if they, excuse me, and if they still want to influence the other people, they can step away from that group and start living the way that they want to live, even if it's opposed to them, the group that they came up. Let the group see how they live. Don't have to preach to them anymore. You know what I mean? Let them come. Let them see. There was just something about, like in church, where they say you don't really have to preach what Jesus said. Go live like what Jesus lived how Jesus lived, and other people will see Jesus in you or see God in you, however you want to say it. Then they will come to you to ask you, how did you get to be the way you are? Because people, it's the same thing with being rich. If you're around a bunch of poor people, this rich person goes out and this poor person goes out and they become rich. That rich person is living their life. There are going to be people that say, "Hey, man, give me the money." But that person who's trying to influence people to come out, they'll listen to the person that says, "How did you get there?" You know what I mean? So they don't have to really focus on the people begging. They can focus on the people who are striving to come up. Which is going to be less than the amount of people begging.
So, all
So
right, all right. I think what I'm hearing you say is then you have to live your life in a way that shows there's a different way. I have to do the same. And in a sense, us being embodiment of that can inspire someone else to change.
it inspire them, and it will enroll them into a different way of thinking and seeing that
Mm.
it is possible. So enrollment, going back what I was talking about, instead of
Come full
enrolling,
circle.
yeah, instead of enrolling to what they said, make them enroll people into your dream, enroll people into assisting you. We don't have to take them out of what they are thinking. You know, we just have to enroll them into supporting us. Stay who you are, but if you're supporting me, some of the stuff might have to fall off.
No
But
doubt.
but that's it's not our jobs to change people, you know, fully. It's their responsibility to change. It's our job to stay on our path. But you said something earlier. You said
That's right.
something earlier. You was talking about you had a conversation with your wife.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, man. We had a conversation about building a paradise.
Okay.
And it's kind of like what you're saying, man. If you have a dream, you want to build that. Maybe your dream is building a paradise. And in this case, she was talking about building her a paradise to live in, you know.
Okay.
And as a husband, I kind of feel like that's my role to build a life that my wife is comfortable in. And, that brought all types of thoughts into my head about, being a man who can um, provide that for my spouse, and also how do I create a safe place for my child? We have one child. He's 19 years old now. How do I build a space for him to grow up and be to thrive also? So it was just about being a father. I guess sometimes you hear women say they want a father figure in their husband. And like what do they even mean by that? Yeah, so that's kind of what we were talking about, man. And it's been some challenges throughout the years. I've been married, 27 years here pretty soon. And there's all types of stages that you go through in a marriage. You've been married for a long time too, right, Ali?
Yeah,
You
25.
got 25 years. So, I was 19 when we got married. I'm now 47 almost. So it took me growing up and then even realizing it wasn't until just maybe a couple of years ago that I realized, man, type of space, this is the type of space I need to be creating. Um, yeah, just hit that record button. Awesome. So yeah, so this is the type of space I need to be creating. And there's been some challenges with that, both as a father and as a husband, recognizing that when my wife talks to me, a lot of times it was about the emotions she was experiencing, and then me being an analytical person, just hearing the words and not really translating that into a feeling that she was wanting to express. So that's been some of the challenges, is that it gets lost in translation sometimes. And then as a father, you're watching your child grow up, you want to be able to give them a place to grow into their own
Yeah.
and not stifle their growth, but also find the balance between leading them. I know growing up in my household, especially after 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, it was a lot of church. And that was kind of just preached. This is what we're going to do. You're going to church, which is fine if that's how you want to raise your child. But I also felt like my individualism and things that I wanted to express were being stifled because of, we're going to church and you're going to do this 8 times a week, you know.
Okay.
So I go ahead.
Where do you mean? What do you mean by find a balance in leading them? My question is, if you're leading, you know, if you're leading, why do you think there's a need to find a balance in what somebody else is thinking when they are following you?
Well, I personally think that even though someone is following me, they're following certain attributes that I have, certain things they like that they want to maybe emulate. But at the same time, they're not following me to be like me. They're following me to add to their toolbox to be the best version of them. So in that sense, I felt like it was important to lead in a way that I felt proud of as a father, but also recognizing that my child isn't gonna be me. So it was modeling behavior that I thought was admirable, honorable, and all that, and giving him a piece of those things while helping him discover who he was and who he wanted to be and what his life has. So in that sense, that's what I mean by kind of leading, but not wanting him to be me. And that takes a balance between recognizing someone's own special talents and gifts that they have to offer that they came into this world with, so they could put those on display.
Well, wouldn't that be still leading? Okay, I understand
Sure.
that there's a thing to where uh we used to hear, I don't know if you heard it, but I'm pretty sure you did. Um, hey, it's my way or the highway. This is my house. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And
Yeah.
it works. You're not going to be doing this in my house. You're not going to do this. I'm the head of this household, you
Yeah.
know, or whatever. That's still leading, and that's hey, but how
And that's what I mean by the
how
balance.
I mean, but that's what I'm saying. I don't understand where's the balance, because you can still do that and still allow a person to be themselves.
Absolutely. So there's in one like you have certain roles and responsibilities in the physical world that you should do. You have to do. You got to, clean your house, make the bed, do chores, uh, earn a living, those types of things. But the way in which you go about earning a living may be different from mine. the concept is, hey, you need to earn a living, but perhaps you don't take the route that I did in the fitness industry. Maybe that route for you is being a doctor, a lawyer, a basketball player, whatever it is. And then how can you give the work ethic, uh, teach them to put the meaningfulness in it, take it seriously, not procrastinate, but still develop their own individual path in that sense. So the balance is instilling things that actually are going to help you make that happen while allowing them to make it happen the way they want to make it happen. So with what you're saying, and that concept is my way or the highway, that does have a place, but it still has to be balanced.
Okay. So
Yeah.
is that the same way? Or is that the same way, or do you have to change the gloves when you're dealing with when you're going from father to husband? Do the gloves stay the same in your mind?
Well, I have a son, so that's one real clear distinction between fatherhood and husbandhood for me is raising a son. He doesn't need quite the same things as a spouse or a female spouse, but yet it is very similar. Like I did a little research on it, and they said like whenever you have a child or when you get married, there's similar things that change in the brain. And they said you both of them cause increased empathy. This changes in the male brain. So when a male has a child and when he gets a spouse, there's certain bio changes that take place. Both of them cause increased empathy, better emotional regulation, stronger bonding through oxytocin, greater activation of the brain's reward system, improved communication between emotion and executive brain region. And that was kind of that disconnect sometimes that happen between a female brain and a male brain, knowing when to improve with or communicate with emotion versus just logic, reduce impulsivity, increase patience, greater long-term thinking, being able to plan and think uh, for the future, stronger attachment and commitment, and experience-dependent neuroplasticity, meaning the brain changes through repeated loving behavior. So those things are very similar from spouse to child. But where it differs is um, like for a woman, I think from what I experienced, my wife seems to want a father figure in that someone who creates emotional safety.
Mm.
Whereas, whereas with a boy, if you think about it, like let's say we were a hunter-gatherer society and we needed to go out and bring food back to the family. As a son, you expose the boy to danger. Hey,
Right.
we gotta go hunt this deer, and we're gonna have to climb over a mountain. We're gonna have to run through the water. So you're exposing him to danger. Whereas with a female, you're kind of shielding her from danger. So but the difference is like if you're exposing that male child to danger, in this case, you're teaching him those concepts of what it's like to go out and create safety for his future spouse. And then you're teaching the female spouse how to receive the safety from the male. So it's different in a way, but both of it comes from that place of better empathy and emotional control to be the best in those roles.
Okay, I dig that. I dig that.
Yeah.
So it
But it's not
is.
always easy, man.
No, it's not. I got a boy and a girl. I got two girls. And
Yeah. What's the difference between the two when you being a father?
well, okay. Well, this part is the difference. My son, I talked to him, hey, make sure you getting some sex. You like girls? Make sure you getting some sex. Keep your mind on that because I want some grandchildren. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah,
talking to, and my daughter's older than my son, but I'm talking to him like that. My daughter, I'm like, be careful, messing with these dudes, because they just want your treasure, you know.
yeah,
I'm serious. Like
yeah.
they
That
just
I
want your
see it. Yeah, yeah,
treasure. And when people go looking for gold or they looking for diamonds, the diamonds aren't right there on the top surface. You got to dig down deep. They got to work. They got to work. You know what I mean? To get it. So I mean, like the conversations on just that aspect are totally different. Totally
yeah.
different. Um, you know, but she can hear me talking to my son, and he can hear me talking to her. We talk different. And then there's a safety issue too. My son goes
Yeah.
out. I'm like, hey, you good? He good. He good. All right, cool. Hey, it's getting dark. My daughter go out. It's getting dark. You got your phone? You okay? Cool. You going for a walk? You got your mace? You got you are
Yeah.
you prepared for this going outside right now? So I mean, like there's more of a security thing. Of course, she's a daughter, and we know how sometimes L. And I don't talk to my daughter about the police too often. I talk to my son more about the police. So yeah, there's a different thing. And my oldest daughter, she is 30, and I got two grandchildren, two boys, and our conversations are hella different.
Yeah, no
Because
doubt. Yeah,
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 because
for sure.
she's a woman, and so it's like, okay, cool. My daughter, my other one, my youngest daughter, she's 22. She's a woman too, but different. One doesn't have a
Yeah,
baby.
different. Yeah, different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally
I
different
mean,
vibes.
when you talk about like my wife didn't grow up with her father in the household. So it was her mom and three daughters. She's the youngest of three daughters, and they're all about 5 years apart. And so being that, she wanted to be with her father who wasn't there, she had a very strong mother who I loved a lot. And unfortunately, she passed away way too young. But she instilled a lot of fire in terms of going out, taking care of yourself, being a strong woman. You can do anything. Those types of uh, mental attributes, right? Which is great because as a woman who's raising three girls to find a way to keep them safe, like you say, you need to tell your daughter, hey, do you got your mace? Can you go earn a living? And all these things come into play because of the hurt that the mother experienced, and now the daughter is experiencing for not having that father around. When we got married, I wasn't nearly aware enough of this and what type of toll that took on her as a young girl and a woman, and
Huh?
how it then played out over the decades of our marriage. And it wasn't until recently where I was not recently, maybe a couple of years, where I started to understand and kind of see that role and how it shaped her. But it's very recently where I'm realizing how I can even step up into that role and be that for her, especially since I grew up with not a lot of strong male figures in my life. I had uncles around, but they were doing their thing, getting in trouble themselves. And by the time I was a teenager, now they're all in the church and they kind of put all that lifestyle behind, but not giving those true lessons of what it was like to be a male figure in a household who could provide that emotional safety for a female. I didn't really grow up with that. So it
Okay.
took a lot of time for me to realize this is how I need to act for her to feel safe and comfortable. And it didn't help, me being a knucklehead at between 19 and 40, 19 and 40. I'll just go that 19
Yeah.
to 40.
Damn.
Uh,
I get it though. I get it, man.
yeah, I mean, I was like, for some context, I had my son at 27, and I told you the emotional brain changes you go through.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
even then, like being able to hold a woman's emotions, because when they get like into it, man, it's a challenge to be grounded.
yeah.
I don't know how it is for you, but like
No,
I
no,
mentioned,
we there. I just
Yeah,
learned it too.
a very strong woman who's like, I've been raised to be strong and independent, and that it's hard to ground into yourself and handle those emotions. So it's been very recently where I've even had the wherewithal to just kind of say, this is how I need to be grounded in this situation. And that's been a learning process for me, um, just through trial and error, reading, trying to understand. So that's one of the major challenges, how to create that environment where a woman can feel really safe
And
in that way.
I think in part of that creation is a lot of conversation. There's a lot
Hmm.
of conversation that has to go. There's a lot of enrolling. There's a lot of I'm not going to say compromising. I'm going to say listening.
Yeah,
A lot of
like
listening.
blending, meshing together.
Yeah. From both sides, and more so not telling them that they are wrong.
Yeah,
And that goes both ways. Don't tell me that I'm wrong. I'm not telling you that you're wrong for the way you're thinking. My job is to understand the way you think so that I can figure out how to put us on the same track. And you got to understand the way I think so you can understand how to get on track, or get me on track so we can mesh, we can blend, we can live in the same space and grow and thrive together instead of just cohabitate.
yeah. I mean, that's a big word you said right there about not making them feel like they're wrong. Oftentimes when we get into these, a heated conversation, my wife will just say, "Well, I feel like you make me feel like I'm wrong when I express my emotions in this way." And it's been a challenge to get her to realize that that is not my intent to make her feel wrong, but just to understand. And I think a lot of it, part of it is on me because I know when I was emotionally unable to sit in that and be grounded as a younger man, probably communicated that that's wrong. You shouldn't feel that way. In fact, I know I did. You shouldn't feel that way, etc. And I think about what she tells me about her father when something would go wrong. He would just say things like, "Oh, I'll forget about it. Why are you worried about it? Here's some money. How much I need to pay to make that go away?" And not really validating those feelings
Yeah, and
as a father. Yeah,
it's up to us too at the same time to know that we're different. We have to know that. We have to know that we're different. We have to take time to listen. And
yeah,
listening is really the most major part, because and to reiterate what we think we heard, and also to point out situations that just happened that are peaceful situations. We don't have to use this technique just during arguments, but
yeah.
when
That's right.
we both see something differently, and it's just a regular conversation and we both see something differently, that you can bring that one to light. Oh wow, I was seeing it this way and you were seeing it that way.
Yeah,
Plant that seed. And there's nothing wrong, because it was a nice conversation. And
absolutely. Yeah.
now might that might derail the nice conversation.
Oh,
but
I've derailed a lot of them, bro.
but at least it's a good conversation, and
Yeah,
there's learning and understanding. And then, in a way, this is how I have realized it works for me, and that all women are different. But when I
yeah,
do use that technique, like, oh wow, that was pretty cool. I was thinking about it this way, and I believe you was thinking about it that way because we said this, and that. And when they get that little wrinkle or whatever, like, oh, come here. Yeah, we're awesome, aren't we? Positive reassurance that there's no hard feelings. There's nobody being called stupid. There's nothing. Hey, give a kiss and then smack that little bottom. You know what I'm saying? That's what I do. So, but
that's
however it
awesome, man.
works,
Yeah,
in yours, and it now, mind you, just like what you said, it took you from 18 to 40. It took me from Hey, I'm 51. I think I just learned this 2 years ago.
Hey
Or
man,
just
yeah,
employment.
we slow learners, man. Uh, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Because I don't know about you. I mean, I didn't have anybody like really. I mean, we just got married anyway. We didn't tell anybody we would get married. We just did it, and I didn't know what I was getting into. And but I certainly didn't have anybody around because I haven't really been around my adult family since I was 18, really. So it's just kind of been us on an island, and then we have a kid in the mix, trying to figure all of it out, and just kind of learning it on the fly. And it's a process of kind of constantly thinking, how can I get better in this situation? How can I show up better for the person who I promised to live the rest of my life with? How can we create more of a paradise where we coexist, in a way that we both feel great about?
yeah,
Um, yeah, and but it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I mean, we after COVID happened, it was a time where I was in a new state. I mean, we moved from Vegas just before COVID, and it put us in a place, in a new state, new environment where we had to sit down and have deep conversations about so many things. And it just continued on for years after that, where we had to sit down and just talk and listen to each other and work out
yeah,
different things about religion, belief, money, uh, child rearing, and all those different things. And there were some hard conversations. Like sometimes I didn't even think we were going to make it through them. Like this is over. It's over. Like if we can't get on the same page about this, it's over. And we just kept talking because it was important to me to stand in there and have those conversations, even when my feelings were hurt, even though I thought she was being too emotional about it or whatever. Because I remember watching my cousin grow up who wanted his father to be around so much, but his mom was a single mom, and his dad would make promises. Hey, I'm gonna come pick you up, and we're gonna go here. I'm gonna pick you up, and we're gonna go there. But he wouldn't show up, and we were so close, me and my cousin. He was like a brother to me, and I just used to watch how much it hurt him when his dad would just let him down, and and that really stuck with me to really show up and be there. Even if I did a bad job, I know I needed to be there because my presence of just being there for my child meant so
yeah,
much. And I
yeah.
saw that. So that's why it was so important for me to stand in there and be around. And my mom has had conversations with me about she's what, I'm 47. So she's 67, of how she's lived her life. She was a single mom of three kids by the age of 21, and how she's lived her life and never really been happy in general, and has so many things that she wants to accomplish. And I know a part of me feels like that happiness gap is bridged with someone else in my life. And how can we build that happiness? So another reason why it's important for me to stay in there and build a life that's great and valuable to both of us. So
I
those are some of the experiences that shaped me in that sense of why it's important to thrive through all that.
and I think that that is also what people or some people think. Because I know when me and Vanessa was going through our little thing, I'm like, man, I went back to thinking, we're trying to do this. Am I being delusional? Thinking that this is going to work? Because we're doing, we would change. And then I'm like, okay, we're back doing the same thing or whatever. But I think a lot of people for divorce, they they think of being delusional and they stay in that thought. They stay enrolled in being delusional instead of switching over and saying, wait a minute, I am the creator of this. Because I am thinking delusional, I'm going to keep putting the same things back into this relationship, which I'm trying to grow, you know? So it is the thing to where people take the mindset of being a victim instead of being responsible, feeling
Yeah,
responsible. And that's that responsibility. I believe it comes the same thing, like what you said, being a father. You know, you
yeah,
not being a victim to fatherhood, not being a victim to the husband work that has to be done, and all of the balancing and confusion that comes with having a partner. You know what I mean? There is confusion for some partners, and holding that responsibility that, yeah, this time I might have been the one to cause this argument, you
no
know.
doubt. Yeah,
So and not always being the victim, not always being the victim. And you showed, hey, not I'm not going to be a victim. I understand that this is what your pops did. Let me go ahead and investigate and listen more. Let me see how I can create an environment of a way of conversing with you, a way of gathering this information that supports you. So I and at the same time, we're doing the same thing with our children, you know.
that's right.
So
That's right,
that's the
man.
balance you was talking about, I believe.
Yeah, I mean that's it, man. And yeah, it's just that balancing that, I've made so many mistakes. I won't sit here and act like, I've got it all figured out. I mean, just the other day, I'm sitting up here, something happened, and I go into my little pouty mode and don't talk, you know, and that has been my downfall over the years of going into this shell and not being expressive when things get tough. Um, so sometimes I can shut down in that way too. Um, but that's where I realized that having a spouse who's also willing to stand in, and my wife is great about, trying to really pull those buttons and get me to show up better. So it's a growth process together. And I realized that being um, in the household I was in, I also need that little bit of motherly love too. And I thought when I was younger, it felt like, because I think women want to be just really close, come close to me, be around, where you're going, how you doing, and to me it felt really smothering early on. But the more we're married, the longer we're together, I realize that that closeness is what I really desire. You know what I mean? And just growing up
Yeah,
to realize that that's something that makes me feel more whole and complete. And it took a while to even recognize that that's what I needed in myself to feel complete, was that. So yeah, it's been a journey, man. We 27 years in, we're still growing, learning new stuff about each other every day and new experiences. So I'm excited for what it brings and what it's going to mean to thrive. And last thing I'll say about it is I feel like marriage, if you remember some of those attributes I read off earlier, um, about how parenting and um, fatherhood are very similar, better emotional regulation, improved communication, reduce impulsivity, greater longer term thinking, stronger attachment and commitment. These things are part of becoming a better whole person in general. And what better way to do that than in the sanctity of marriage when you find someone who can help you build that? And I started this with like, how do we build this paradise together? It starts with kind of that closeness of a relationship and being on the same page. You mentioned earlier about like-minded people. Having a spouse who's like-minded and wanting to create that can start be the seed that creates that paradise.
yeah, and that was a wonderful talk we just had, brother. And we'll be here next week at the same time to continue on with more thoughts. So,
Yeah, man.
love you guys.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. Yeah, it was a great one. We'll be back next week. We're doing big things. I don't know what we'll talk about next week. Somewhere between A to Z, we'll come up with something great to discuss next week, man. It was fun, bro, as always. Appreciate you.